Yang who is with me, plus a number of the ministers and MPs and ministerial appointees, plus some of the other appointees of government who are also in the House, just about exiting once the president makes his way out. We'll dissect a few of the things we had today, a few things that really, before we go into the conversations with some of the ministers responsible for some of the sectors. The president, for example, has been touching on all of the sectors. And Kojo, if you listen to the president, he took time to isolate some of the key sectors. And for me, I was looking at security as one of the key areas, obviously because of what we've seen in the last few weeks with the Kwabena cell break, but also the general sense of insecurity after that. The announcement that 800 million cedis is going to be made available to the police to buy 1,000 vehicles, including bicycles, is refreshing to hear. And I was just looking out for what he would say about jobs. He talks about 100,000 young men and women of Ghana being employed this year, and the special program that is going to augment the already existing youth employment initiatives that we have. But the missing link there for me was his inability still to tell us how many jobs he's created this in the last year. And surprisingly also, I thought he will re-emphasize there are great ministers, 140 something jobs, 1,000 jobs,
745,000 jobs
that he said he created.
I wonder whether it's an indication that perhaps there is a desire to back away from that particular claim.
Yeah.
Because it is quite clear that that claim is being made in the absence of actual checks. It appears to be a forecast, a calculation of how many jobs can be created as a ripple effect of the amount of fertilizer and inputs that they have distributed as part of planting for food and jobs. So I think it makes sense for them to perhaps start to back off a little bit from that particular claim. But you're right about what you say regarding security and what a massive difference the president's plans will make to the security services. The police have been cash-strapped for many years. They complain constantly about how little of what they request in the budget actually gets given to them on an annual basis. So to hear that there are going to be all of these dedication of resources to them and their efforts must be a weight off their shoulders. But of course, for the people of Ghana, they want to feel the impact of this with improved policing and an increased sense of security. And we are yet to see the effect of a lot of the things that the president is touting as positives in the State of the Nation address.
And he also touched on the armed forces as a key area. Another thing that, when you're analyzing State of the Nation addresses, you don't only pay attention to what he said. What he didn't say is also very important. And for me, one of the things he didn't say that I thought was crucial was the fuel prices. Also because in the last few days, it's become one of the most topical issues. And I've just been joined by the ranking member on the Energy Committee as we talk about fuel, because you can't run away from the fact that yesterday when we went to the market, speaking to market women, almost all the market women we spoke to, one common theme was running through the impact of the fuel price hikes on their livelihoods and their ability to sustain themselves. And so that was key. What's your own impression of, first of all, generally, of the State of the Nation address and what the president today?
The president is not impressive because the president just came, one, to praise his ministers, and two, to endorse the corruption that we have alleged that by clearing all the ministers of the corruption charges that we have against them. So we don't see anything significant. Two, there is a very pertinent issue with respect to fuel prices. I thought as a ranking member for Mines and Energy that he will tell us the special petroleum tax that was imposed in 2015 because of the price differentials between the benchmark price and the actual price, creating a deficit. It does no more exist again. And therefore, he will ensure that it is laid in Parliament and scrapped. That was a very critical message I needed from the president. But he just glossed over it. He didn't even talk about it. And that is surprising to me.
But he talked about the general energy sector. He talks about how Dumso is no longer part of our diction, and how there's been, his words, spectacular improvement in energy supply in this country. That is an important part.
First and foremost, since the FPSO has been shut down, most part of Ghana experiences Dumso.
We can say that for sure.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Most parts, I'm in the media, I haven't heard most parts.
I experienced lights off in my area. I have both in the northern region, came from the northern region, just this.
There was a statement from NEDCO rectifying that hours after it happened.
No. It wasn't one. If you go to the northern sector, they will tell you that we get periodic lights off. That one still exists because of the shutdown of Dumso. But let me come to he claiming that he has been able
spectacular improvement in the energy sector.
What is his investment in terms of assets, generating capacity?
That's not how you measure it alone.
No, I'm coming through a process. First of all, we need investment so that we have the excess power to generate. 2, we need fuel. And the fuel means that we have the Atuabo gas plant that is currently supplying fuel to most of the generating plants. 3, we need to set off the debt that we had. Who introduced EXLA? It's former President Mama, who brought a lot of investment to increase the capacity.
But you left billions and billions of dollars of debt. And in fact, that's where his emphasis was.
Let me tell you.
Dealing with that debt.
The energy sector debt is a legacy debt.
That's true, but you let a huge substantial part of that legacy debt.
We all went through power crisis, to be very frank. Went through power crisis. Then do you know the debt last year? $500 million. Even though we are no more in Dumso, this current government incurred $500 million debt. So while clearing the $2.4 billion debt, we are incurring more debt. So the president cannot say that because he has come, there is no accrual of debt. Debt is being accrued as we sit today. We have over $5 million debt from 1st January 2017 to date. We have over $5 million debt. So he's not being cleared of. Any prudent government should have first of all curtailed the debt while settling the old debt, which we call legacy debt, that cut across government. The Kufuor government left a debt. We came, and because of the power crisis, there was a debt. And as such, the former president took hard but necessary decision by bringing ESLA, that is the Energy Sector Levy Act, to be able to settle off the debt. Yeah. They have come. Initially, they kicked against it. They came and embraced it. We thought 5 years we should be able to settle it. They are thinking of 15 years. And we are incurring more debt as well.
And I'm sure that the debate will continue, but I'm grateful that you joined us. That's the ranking member on the Energy Committee in Parliament. Kojo.
By in general.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1.
Of security direct.
Very much. Let me put things in perspective that the period of investigation, prosecution, and etc. takes a bit longer time. And then the court system and structure itself takes a bit longer time. And so to say that because there was no conviction whatsoever, there was no activity, will be an understatement. In fact, what happened was that a lot of the state agencies, IOCO, specifically the CID, and other state institutions responsible for the fight against corruption, triggered several investigations. I think not less than 30 high-profile investigations into many other government sectors and procurement issues. And quite a number of them were concluded. And you recall that very late last year, we presented to court the NCA matter. I can assure you that those that are ready in the not too distant future will equally be presented to the courts. And generally, we also recall that even in His Excellency the President's address, he particularly acknowledged the fact that we had the successful conclusion of the delivery of judgment in respect of the maritime dispute between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. that, of course, was one of the commendable things that happened in this particular country last year. Again, as I indicated, a number of cases have been lined up for prosecution, but there have not been conclusions as regard investigations. And when those things are done, they will be carried through.
Was there a conscious...
Specifically speak to the issue of what His Excellency the President said in regard to security, talking about the retooling of the police service and all that. He mentioned the fact that some colossal amount of over 800 million cedis will be spent on security issues to retool the police and also look at the armed forces and all that. He specifically mentioned these things. And these are things that he mentioned, even including amount of money that will be dedicated to those areas. So no doubt, security is a priority. He talked about the fact that crime knows no color and it knows no political coloration. And so heavy investment is going to be made into various facets of our criminal jurisprudence to ensure that we fight crime and fight it well.
Right. Now, if this investment results in increased police activity, more investigations, more cases, is your office properly tooled to handle an increased volume of work coming to you from the police service?
Absolutely. We've not said anywhere that we are overwhelmed. Indeed, what we have done in collaboration with Parliament leading to the passage of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act is a big step to take out the pressure from us regarding the cases that deal with corruption and corruption-related offenses, so that the Office of the Special Prosecutor deals with that, and the other offenses, we take up that to make sure that the fight against public sector corruption particularly is taken to another level because of the inherent weaknesses that we have witnessed over the period and over the years regarding the inability of the Attorney General's Department to be able to prosecute, especially people of their own. And as governance experts and think tanks have said it over the period. So you know that very soon we're going to have the vetting of the person who has been nominated, the Honorable Martina Midu, and the office will be properly constituted. And in the course of the year, many cases will come before that office and our office for successful prosecution.
Mr. Dindio Penka, thank you very much for your time. Does that make you feel more secure? The choice is yours. But Evans, who...
Honorable Minister for Sanitation, and remember the President described him as his most ambitious minister in the last year. That must have meant something to you, Mr. Ada.
Indeed, it means a whole lot to me because of the challenge that I'm up against. You must be ambitious to be able to deliver on this challenge. We're all ready, set to roll, and that's going to happen this year.
It appears from what the President said that you took a year to get things in place, and now you're ready to lift off. Is that what happened?
Very true, yes, indeed. He also mentioned that we're engulfed in debt, huge debts, when we came in the sanitation sector. And that's something we've been renegotiating, restructuring to try and address. There's also the challenge of the attitudinal matter, which affects you and I. He said all hands have to be on deck. All of us have to rise to the wheel, as it were, to ensure that we change our habits and how we address waste. There's the government obligation of ensuring that we pay for what we need to provide for in terms of services, in terms of equipment, in terms of vehicles. All these things are some of the things that have been planned for. You must also bear in mind that the real solution in this matter is not just a change in attitude, but the value end of it, in the sense that waste is now a resource that can be recycled, reused for us to enhance development. Essentially, we need to set up integrated material recovery sites, unlike the landfill sites that we had before. This means massive investment. So what the President mentioned, the 200 million cedis, would go into providing for the personnel whom we do not see on the street these days. We need to get them back on the streets, sweeping, gathering the waste, for the service providers to be paid regularly, for them to be able to convey the waste to the landfill sites. I shut up from saying landfills because that's something that we shouldn't work on anymore. We are talking about sending landfills to sorting sites where those materials will be sorted out into recyclable items, into matters that can go into generating compost fertilizer for us, and also incineration that will generate electricity. So the entire value chain is what we've been examining and strategizing on. We're set on that with the commitment of the financial resources. I'm sure we'll see tremendous results.
A question to you. I'm sure you've heard the criticism. You've been criticized. I'm one of the most criticized ministers, that the filter's still out there. We are not seeing Ada where we see. There was a social media campaign even started, fire or sack Ada. You've seen all that, and your reaction to that is?
My reaction to that is that I've lived through this. When I was the Minister for Employment, at the time we called it Manpower, Youth and Employment, there was a huge youth unemployment problem. Get the kids back on the road, get them jobs. It took me a while to get a youth employment program running. Now it's become a youth employment agency. That didn't exist in Ghana until I became a youth employment minister and got that in place. It took a while to build it together. When I became Minister for Energy, we were faced with a crisis 2006, 2007. Today, we boast of the Bui Dam, we boast of the SONA plant, we boast of Athol Energy, we boast of the Gong thermal plant. All these take time to get things done. To come to this new sector, where it now affects attitudes, individuals, also affects or requires massive investment. It takes time to get this properly planned, strategized, laid on.
When will we see the results?
We'll see the results this year.
This year. And specifically, are we going to see the cities clean, very, very clean this year?
You will see the cities clean. You will see the young men and women who are cleaning the streets, who have disappeared back on the streets. You will see the waste being collected from the refuse heaps that we've seen in the marketplaces, in some of the illegal dump sites. I must also say that even this past year, we're able to collect the waste from the Malam market area, Adedenko, Glefe, Trinity College, Legon. All these were areas that we had to deal with, against the fact that the local authorities are primarily responsible for that. But because of the difficulty and the problems we've had with the contracts that have been signed at different levels by sector ministries, by local authorities, we've had to examine all these, streamline them, and also look at how to pay the service providers that we owe. I must also stress that the government is bent on providing equipment on concessional terms, to equip the service providers, the trucks, the compactor trucks they need, the containers they need, and all the kinds of things that will enable them to be able to collect the waste and get it out of the site that we see every day. So we are confident that we're going to deliver results.
You're not resigning, you're not being sacked, you're staying.
Oh, when you're given a challenge to deliver, that's the excitement to get it done. Wait till we get it done. And I hope that those same people who are asking for my head will be the ones they should be honorable enough to come on air and say, Mr. Ada has done a good job.
All the best. Thank you very much. Kojo.
Mr. Roxon Dafiamekwo is the Member of Parliament for South Dine. He joins us now. And of course, I wonder, after listening to the President go through all the various sectors, and with job creation being such a big issue today, I wonder whether you think he did justice to that area and you feel promise for the year 2018.
Now, Kojo, thank you for the opportunity. I think the President, when he met the press a few weeks ago, did indicate that he was not aware of the actual figure of the number of jobs that they have created as a government. And so, for instance, I was expecting that he would tell us that for the 2017 year or calendar year, they've been able to create XYZ jobs in A, B, C, D sectors of the economy. But again, we realized that what the President did was to praise the Minister for Employment for successfully transferring some amount of money to another sector as an achievement. Now, as a government that came to power on the key promise of job creation, we were hoping that they could say that, for instance, in my constituency in South Dine, how many jobs they created, either through the activities of the Ministry of Agric, or through the Fisheries Ministry, or, for instance, through the Ministry of Education, how many people they employ. But it did not happen. And so these are the issues we'll be interrogating within the coming days. Now, regarding the issue as to security, yes, I'm happy he touched on security. But he failed especially to tell us that, indeed, a lot of the issues have had to happen through people who were close to them. Yes, again, he's made the point that he's instructed the IGP to crack the whip without any recourse to nepotism, without any recourse to party affiliations. We are happy to hear that. But see, there must be well-resourced. Now, in resourcing the police, I am happy he mentioned certain things he intends to do. But I didn't hear the kind of things they did for the year, and that worried me. I've heard that they have acquired 100 Toyota Corolla vehicles. Now, how do you give Toyota Corolla vehicles for purposes of police operations? On which roads would they be using them? I thought in all honesty that they will be acquiring pickups. If they had acquired even 15 Toyota Hilux pickups, they are hard body cars that can operate in the suburban areas. For instance, when you come to my constituency, I have 2 police commands. One district command is in Kweve. There's one district command in Peki. They have no single operational vehicle.
So, is that fair, though? I mean,
it is not fair.
In this country, there are saloon vehicles. They run on these same roads. Why would the police be unable to do their job in a saloon
because, car? Kwejo, if you leave the urban milieu, if you leave the urban centers, a lot of the roads in the suburban areas are in a deplorable state. And so my worry is that if you put a Toyota Corolla for purposes of police operations, it will deteriorate in no time. You understand? So we will not have value for money. But if we were to acquire pickups, then I think that the pickup can be put into operation for a number of years. But I doubt whether the Corolla vehicles, perhaps they are supposed to be placed at the disposal of the high-ranking police officers. They are not meant for police operations. But if you are talking about vehicles for police operations, I think we should go for pickups.
Mr. Roxon Dafiamiko, thank you very much for your time. Evans has a guest. It happens to be the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Republic of Ghana, Mr. Abu Jinapo.
Kojo, thank you. And let me repeat, we are live on the JoyNews channel on the Multi-TV. We're also live on Joy 99.7 FM. We are streaming live on myjoyonline.com and also on Twitter as well. Just been joined by the Deputy Chief of Staff, Mr. Abu Jinapo. Mr. Jinapo, let's start with what you witnessed. You were on the floor of the House proper with your other colleagues. I saw you sitting right behind the First Lady and your boss, Freeman Parry. What's your reaction to the way the minority side reacted and jeered the president?
Well, first of all, I'm not a parliamentarian. I've never been one, and therefore I don't pretend to be an expert on parliamentary conduct and behavior. But I'm a student of politics, and I've been a student of politics and studying best practices, the House of Commons, Senate, Congress, and many other parliaments across the world. We have the best practices and we have the worst practices. You have some of the best practices as the House of Commons, described as a matter of all parliaments. And you have some of the worst practices where parliamentarians get into fisticuffs and throw chairs at each other. What we have to seek to strike at is the balance. Now, heckling and expression of one's attitude towards a statement made by the president, and in particular and in general terms, is in accord with precedent and practices across board. When the MPP was in opposition and in a minority, the MPP did similar things. I mean, sat down when a president came in, showed even President Mills a red card. But I think as a country, we need to have an intellectual national discourse among stakeholders in our democracy, particularly civil society groups who are into democracy, parliamentary democracy and the rest, for us to begin to charter and define what constitutes proper parliamentary conduct when Parliament is in session as they were today. I think it's a conversation that will be useful. For instance, I heard a minority member of Parliament yell at the president, "Shame on you." And I'm not too sure that's proper language, that's appropriate language. I'm not too sure that is parliamentary, because Parliament, as the microcosm of the sovereignty of our country and the representatives of the people, by all means must use language which all of us will find acceptable if our children were to hear us use such language. And therefore, we need to engage in this national discussion. I'm happy you've raised that issue. I think we should discuss it and come up with clear definition as to what will be proper parliamentary conduct and what will not be.
Let's look at how the president descended. One of the things that was unique today was his deliberate attempt to mention the names of his ministers and commend them for one thing or the other. Not all the ministers were mentioned, and already some are reading me into it and say, if you didn't hear your name, it's possible you're one of those on your way out when that reshuffle happened. Is that what it is? Are we reading the right meanings into that?
Well, first of all, Evans, I'm not sure of a reshuffle, an impending reshuffle. I'm not sure about that. I'm not aware of any of such. Not as though if I was, I would be making that point. I'll be stating it publicly. But I'm not aware of a reshuffle, which is imminent.
Second, deliberate to mention their names and recommending them.
Secondly, the president cannot possibly mention every minister's name. He cannot also touch on every sector of our national life, because that certainly will be practically impossible. You have seen that the president spoke for more than an hour, and that in itself was a burden for all of us. To have had him speak for 1 hour was quite extraordinary, but he did it. He spoke for 1 hour, and he touched on most aspects of our national life. And therefore, the fact that he did not mention a particular minister's name, or the fact that he omitted to mention a particular minister's name, is not indicative of his assessment of the minister. The president has a structure and a system of monitoring his ministers. He has a whole ministry responsible for monitoring and evaluation. So we cannot make those kinds of inferences. And I can say that to you for free and on authority, that the lack of mention of a particular minister is not indicative of an indictment on the minister or any of such thing. It is just the question of the time constraints within which the president has to deliver his speech. And lastly, every president has a style. President Akufo-Addo has come to the presidency of our country with a unique style. He nominated his ministers through press conferences and talked about the ministers. Any opportunity he gets at speaking about a particular sector of our national life, he also goes a step further to mention the minister in particular terms. And I want to use the example of the Minister of Energy. He said the Minister of Energy is a tireless worker. He is a tireless worker. Mr. Boakye Agyarko works dusk to dawn. The Vice President, he said, brilliant, strong, hard-working Vice President. The Vice President barely gets some sleep. He works almost all his life. So this is the President's style, and I think that is a good style because the President ultimately is accountable to the Ghanaian people, and he ought to be telling the Ghanaian people the caliber of people he's assembled to help him prosecute the mandate they vested in him.
A brief comment on the substance of what he said today.
Brilliant, fantastic, articulate, in a manner that clearly should convince and persuade any objective observer that this is a president who is on top of his brief. This is a president who is in charge of his government. Because you saw from the speech that he clearly articulated the legacy he inherited, the economic legacy, the debts he inherited, the arrears, and everything else he inherited. He clearly also gave an account of what he's done for the past year. And what he's done is extremely commendable. He's reduced inflation, he's reduced interest rates, he's grown the economy from 3.6% to 7.8%. He has reduced the debt to GDP ratio, he's brought down the deficit, he's put the economy on a healthy, positive trajectory.
But the fuel prices have gone up as well?
Well, fuel prices have gone up because world prices of crude, and you should go and look at the figures, world price of crude is going up. Nonetheless, the president has tasked the economic management team to come up with a formula, an intelligent formula of dealing with this situation. So you saw a president who was on top of his brief, who articulated a legacy, who talked about what he's done for a year, and most importantly, set out a vision and a program as to where he's taking this country to, and the ultimate goal, as the president stated, which is for me the most important part of his speech, that he's going to work hard and build an economy that can create the hundreds and thousands and millions of jobs for the teeming unemployed youth of our country. You cannot be happier than today as a Ghanaian. We have in Akufo-Addo a president who is on top of his government and a president who is delivering and leading this country to the promised land.
Thank you very much. That's Aboju Napol, there is a deputy professor. Kojo, you still have more?
I do. I have Kwabena Minta Akando. He is the Member of Parliament for Dwabuso. He joins us now. And of course, Mr. Minta Akando, your constituency in particular has made the headlines a few times for the issue of Galamsey. I wonder, as you listen to the President, whether you felt that your particular constituency has a bright future to look forward to according to his plans for 2018.
Yeah, my brother, governance is not about promises and slogans. It's about clear policies and the implementation of those policies. I think this government is lucky because we've done we've put an effective legal framework in place. Gone were the days where if somebody is culpable in the illegal mining business, you just walk to the court and you'll be fined some few cedis and you walk away. But thanks to the former regime, we were able to bring some laws in Parliament for some safer punitive measures to be taken against people who are found culpable of, illegal mining. So it's a matter of the implementation of the laws. It's not about muzzles. If we learn to give an effect to our laws, I think that will be good to go. Let us not sit in the chamber or sit in our offices and tickle ourselves and think that illegal mining, has reduced or somebody else is fighting it. The fact of the matter, you may decide to disagree with me, that illegal mining, as a matter of fact, is still going on in this country. It's still going on in this country. Not until we take a common position that irrespective of your political party or your status in the community or in the society, if you are found culpable, the law will deal with you as such.
Is that your suggestion that there are some people still doing it who perhaps are protected by the institution?
People who think that because their political parties are in power, they can go ahead and do it and nobody has anything to tell them.
There are such people in your constituency?
Well, I do not want to single out my constituency, per se, but you and I, we've been hearing of people dying day in and day out, but the government says it's fighting illegal mining. Why are people dying in that business? And today, those who are mining legitimately has rather been banned from mining. I started to understand why people have even not gone to court up to today. Because if you have legitimate license and somebody, a minister or an officer who is paid by the state to ensure that you do the right thing, relents or sleeps on the job, then I, the one who is doing legitimate business, should be deprived of my business? I do not understand it.
Did you raise these objections when the initial ban was raised?
I have on several occasions. I'm wondering. I'm wondering why you have even not heard this. I've said it on several platforms. That look, let us implement the laws, the rules and regulations. That is what is going to help somebody. If somebody is a small-scale miner and he flouts the rules and regulations, the laws are clear. Deal with the person. But the fact that we are all in the small-scale mining business and somebody is flouting the law doesn't mean that I should suffer for the person's sin.
Do you think the 800 million cedis being pumped into the police service will make a difference in the fight against galamsey?
Not until and unless we learn to implement the rules and regulations, we won't go anywhere. People will be arrested, machines and equipment will be confiscated. At the end of the day, they shall be given back. Mark my words. I have had the opportunity to serve in that particular ministry before. You see, the opportunity this government is having at this point in time is that they are having the backing of the media. So it is at the moment, it is loud. But the fight against galamsey in the ministry is a day-to-day activity. The establishment of the district mining committee, it's there. It is in the act. It is nothing new. The only thing they are doing new or opportunity they are having is that, as I speak to you now, the media is involved in the...
Has that helped them to do better than the previous government?
They are only making noise. Because, look, the bottom line is the implementation of the law.
Mr. Akando, you've made your point. Thank you very much for your time with us. We appreciate it. And there is so much activity here on the Joy News channel. Stay tuned. We have another guest with us, Evans.
Yes, we do, Kojo. And we're also live on the Joy News channel and also on myjoyonline.com. I have the MP for Fantaman, and we're going to go straight to something that is very topical in your constituency, which is the premixed fuel management issue, because you have a lot of fisher folk in there. The president today said that they want to deal with the problem of premixed fuel diversion, and that since November we haven't seen any record of diversion because of what they're doing to try and curb it. Satisfied with what he said, what he laid out as a strategy to solve that problem?
Yes, I'm quite satisfied with the strategy having been put in place by the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture. For me, what is exciting is that the necessary measures in terms of monitoring has been put in place. Now the ministry has outlined regional monitoring team to monitor the activities of the OMC who do the distribution. you recall that last 2017 we had a lot of premix diversion in the country. The measure that has been put in place has resulted in the avoidance of the diversion. And for me, what is exciting is that those OMC who were found to have engaged in the diversion have been banned from supplying premix to the coastal belt. Apart from that, they are being arraigned before the necessary court of competent jurisdiction if they are found culpable of having done the diversion. Apart from that, it has served as a warning to would-be people who intend going into diversion. One of the main reasons why people in the coastal belt asked for change is that there were a lot of premix diversion during the previous regime. Apart from that, the regularity of the premix was also not coming. Now, most of the things that came up as a result of the discussions, and most of them were coming, but they were not going to the rightful landed beaches. The new management team that has been put in place at the regional level are going to monitor, report, and ensure that the diversion doesn't happen again. And for us, if from November up to this time we haven't gotten any diversion, it goes to indicate that the measures that have been put in place are really working to the best satisfaction of.
Thank you very much, and I'm pretty sure that we'll see how all this pans out in the coming days. That's the MP for Fantiman there, and I have Kojo also standing by with another guest of ours.
As always. And I'm joined by Eric Osei Owusu. He's the Honourable Member of Parliament for Afram Plains with the NDC. Mr. Osei Owusu, quite a morning. And the President has spent some time emphasizing on the quality of work that some of his ministers have done, particularly the Agriculture Minister, who he called the champion of Ghanaian farming. From where you sit, do you see some positive results from that particular sector?
Well, that's interesting. You know, this is the State of Nation address. We expect the President to come out and inform the country what the current state of our country is. I think it's the same old thing that we keep hearing the President whenever he comes to the House, you know, to brief us. And it's all about promises, promises, and promises. And so that is why our leader summed it all up today after, you know, the session that is a State of Promises address. I would have wanted the President to touch on, you know, the current state of affairs in the country. I think that Ghanaians are really suffering, as you know, cost of living keeps going up. And those are the things that I would have loved the President to touch on and explain to Ghanaians, you know, why the situation is so right now. Now, Agric, specifically, as you mentioned, you know, and touted the Agric Minister as being the champion of Ghanaian farmers. I have my big reservations. We know we've put in so much into Agric in the past year under the Planting for Food and Jobs. I would have expected that by now, 2 major harvests haven't, you know, gone through already. Food prices would have been coming down. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Yesterday, I listened to the Agric Minister on air, and then he said that we've had a bumper harvest and that there is inadequate space to store the food that has been harvested, and so there are a lot of trucks are parked around Techiman with food in it. I mean, I'm asking myself, how could we be so reckless in not planning? Because if you know that if you embarked on such a project as Planting for Food and Jobs, I mean, one of the things that would come to your mind is, look, you anticipate an increase in production, and for that matter, you make adequate preparations to be able to store the food when you harvest. And so why should food be sitting on trucks in Techiman right now?
So this is not a new problem. How did your government solve it? Because we also heard reports of tomatoes rotting all across the country because we couldn't transport them to the markets on time when your party was in government. What was your solution to this problem?
Well, I'm sure you know about the National Food Buffer Stock, where I work myself. In fact, I was the CEO. We introduced the National Food Buffer Stock because when we introduced the block farms, we anticipated that there will be increased yields in production. And so it was important for us to quickly look at how we'll make adequate storage facilities available in order to store the excess produce. And that's exactly what we did. And that
but why were we still having produce rotting?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, post-harvest losses really came down from about 30% before to about 10%, and it was even going down further. You see, the thing is that you've just mentioned tomatoes. Tomatoes, for instance, there were quite a few factories open. Techiman, Poligu, these were all factories that process tomatoes, and they were open. But there was a technical problem which was to do with the type of tomatoes that we even grow in this country. Most of them were not the species where you can process. And so we still have the challenge where when we harvest tomatoes, we can't process a lot of it because of the nature of the type of tomatoes that we produce in this country. And then as a result, a lot goes into waste. And then, we have to wait till the next tomato season to go back and plant. But, set tomatoes aside, let's look at the dry cereals like maize, rice. These are the staple crops that we eat. And I personally want to see the Agri Minister coming out with a policy, that would actually complete the value chain. Because once you think about, going to increase productivity or production, you must think about how you'll be able to store, what you get. And I'm sad to, hear from him on air yesterday that food is sitting on trucks, not having, adequate storage facilities. I mean, we must do things, in a way that we'll plan before we execute, not just jump in and then, you take the firefighting approach to try and then correct issues. That, in most cases, makes us lose a lot of money.
Mr. Eric Oseusu, I want to thank you for your time. We appreciate it ever so much. And of course, they keep coming. We've got so many guests with us. Evans has two. Lucky you.
I have two. I have the Deputy Aviation Minister, who's the MP for Takoradi as well, Mr. Chiridako Mensah. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Also with me is a Deputy Education Minister whose plate is full today. Of the President talking a lot about your sector in education. But let me start with you. The President also talks about aviation, and that the plan is to expand. What specifically, what do he mean by that?
Basically, we are looking at expanding the space in the aviation. Currently, we are doing 2.6. We want to expand to do about 5 million passengers per year. Terminal 3 was an initial idea by President Kufuor under the Transport Policy Plan of 2008. The NDC did up to 30%. We are currently done 87%, and we hope to complete it by April. If we take the Takoradi area, we have a military airport. We want to do a commercial airport as well, will be completed in March. It's 96% complete in March, and we'll be handing over. If we our policy of encouraging Ghanaians to get into the aviation space. Currently, the Baby Jet airline is coming up. Other media groups are also coming up with an airline. So we hope that this year we should be able to go back to our original 5 and, if possible, add additional 1. In the next 3 months, we are expecting some other international airlines to start doing some part of our domestic, which had become one because of Starbo. So we want to make sure the facilities are there for Ghanaians to use aviation as a way to connect the country and expand the country. If you take the Mole National Park, you used to have an existing runway spot. We are going to redo it. Sunyani.
The Mole National Park?
Yes. Sunyani has also been put on target for this year to be rehabilitated. We are also looking at Paga to rehabilitate that airstrip and possibly do another airstrip at Bolaga, Tanga. So we want to expand as quickly as possible because that is the fastest way and the safest way of means of transport that we can use in connecting this country for other business opportunity. We are not talking about one district, one factory, and we believe that with aviation, a lot of the businessmen that will be investing around the country will have an easier and safer means of traveling across the country to make sure Ghana's productivity has actually gone up.
Something you said about one of the media houses launching an airline. Which media house is this?
I'm not going to tell you.
Come on.
You hear it.
But you know Baby Jet.
Very soon.
The president announced Baby Jet.
So you're going to get an announcement by the president very soon, and you're going to hear that.
That interesting. Let me come to you, Baba. So, the education sector is the most important for the president. He emphasizes that the flagship is the free senior high school. What is the state of that policy? You've had the opportunity to implement it for a while. probably now you should know what is working, what is not working. What is the state of it?
Thank you. I am Barbara.
Barbara, yes, of course.
Member of Parliament for Cape Coast North, Deputy Minister in charge of technical and vocational education. I'm happy we've been able to roll out the free SHS policy, because people felt that we wouldn't be able to, implement that. But I am happy because now we have a bulk of our children in school, and education is the key. And we cannot talk about development in our country if a bulk of the populace is not educated. So I'm happy we've rolled out. Now we have over 90,000 children in school. I am happy we've been able to increase the capitation grant by 100%, and that is also, has also been paid. And we don't have, the challenge. We have not had so far complaining that they've not received their capitation grants. I am happy, but I believe that every new policy may have its challenges, and we are still working on that with regards to infrastructure, with regards to teaching learning materials, with regards to even the caliber of teachers that we put in the classrooms. That is why we're also reviewing our curriculum and also focusing on the teacher trainee, the colleges of education. Because if we're able to get good teachers, then we should also focus on the not sit unconcerned, because if you don't, it's going to create a problem for us. If you have, that is why we have the district directors of education, we have the regional directors of education, we have the GES, and we also have the ministers. After all, the ministers are there because of the people. And so if you have a challenge, if you've complained and nothing is being done, our doors are open. You should walk to any of the ministers and complain. And I believe they'll be able to take the necessary steps, to alleviate or to, solve the situation. Yes. But there's some form of reshuffling going on in the ministry, which I want to, tell our viewers. Now we have a minister in charge of general education, and that is Dr. Edikum. We have a minister in charge of technical and vocational, and then we have a minister of state in charge of tertiary. Now we want to focus on technical and vocational, because that is my area, because it was part of the SHS, the senior high school, and we feel that based on our manifesto promises, we should focus on the technical and vocational. So now I am in charge of technical and vocational. We're going to have a whole directorate. So we're going to have a director general, we're going to have all the directors. We are going to separate that from GES, so that we'll be able to focus on the technical and vocational. And again, we have something technical going on in all the 18 ministries. We are going to bring all of them under the Ministry of Education, and bring all the technical institutions, which of course are under the Ministry of Education, under the Technical and Vocational Directorate, so that monitoring becomes easier, so that we'll be able to revamp the technical and vocational institutions, so that people will not think that it is only when you are not good academically that is supposed to, people think that is the last resort. Yeah. We want to actually erase that kind of perception, and we are working very hard. We're still working on the realignment and trying to revamp all the...
You have a lot on your plate, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, Barbara, for joining us here on Joy 99.7. Kojo, you have your plate full.
That's right, not to be outdone. I also have two guests. So let's say good morning to Cassiel Atto Forson. He used to be the Deputy Minister for Finance, and I'm also joined by Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, who is the current Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, and he used to be the ranking member on the Finance Committee, which is what Mr. Forson is at the moment. But I want to start with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Of course, the President took the pains to mention the names of certain ministers and commend them for doing a good job. Of course, in your seat as a monitoring and evaluation minister, you've been looking at what they've been doing and giving information to the President. So let me ask you this. What we are picking up about a possible reshuffle coming soon following some interview process, how true is that? And what has been your role in it?
Thank you very much. I have no role in what the President is about to do. He's told us starting from next Monday, he's going to have a one-on-one face-off face-to-face interview with each minister. That assessment is not based on my work. What I have done for him was done with all the ministers together at a resort, where I'm measuring the progress. That's not the basis upon which the president is doing his assessment. He has his own way.
So what is the use of the work that you have done? What is that being used for?
We are using that as an internal tool to measure progress in terms of our targets, how far we are going, where we are going wrong, and putting corrective measures, just to make sure that we stay on track.
So where are we going wrong?
No, I think generally speaking, we are on target, except that one area that is troublesome is the use of the gift miss. Most new ministers are finding a bit difficult to understand and follow how gift miss works. So that's something we have to correct.
Right. So does that lead to losses? Are we losing money because we're not using gift miss well?
It leads to slow acceleration of work.
Right. So considering what the president had to say and the number of ministers he had to commend, is that reflective of the work that you did with the ministers in tracking targets?
You cannot link the two because they are not related. His assessment will come starting Monday.
So you will be part of that process too?
I myself, I'll be assessed.
How confident are you that you'll come through it well?
I'm not overconfident, but I know I'm doing my work right.
Dr. Anthony Akotose, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Now, of course, Mr. Forson, no doubt there will be a press conference at some point from the NDC, won't there?
Early next week, we'll address the press and provide the people of this country the true state of the nation. It's important. I say it's important because I think the president missed the opportunity to give us the true state of the nation, Ghana. If you are to look at what the ordinary Ghanaian is talking about, the ordinary Ghanaian is much concerned about the hardship situation in this country. For the misery index is going up, rising steeply. Everybody is very much concerned. I'm concerned. The situation in our pocket is bad. In fact, our pocket is drying by the day. Everybody is talking about it. You go to the market today, something you used to buy 2 cedis, the next day you go, you buy 5 Ghana cedis. What is happening? They claim inflation is coming down, but it's not reflecting in our pocket. They claim that businesses are doing well and interest rate is coming down. It is not actually reflecting in the borrowing ability of businesses. Whether the cost of borrowing is actually coming down to ordinary businesses is another question you have to ask. So you can hide behind certain headline numbers, but the reality is something that we have to assess. Kojo, let's be factual. The president talks about the fact that they have reduced some taxes. But for me, as a tax practitioner, I'm more interested in the total impact of those so-called taxes that you have removed. If you promise the people of Abosokan that you are going to remove taxes on spare parts, only for them to turn around and see taxes going up, what have you done? Cost 90, virtually zero. Zero. Go and ask them whether they are paying less taxes or high taxes. They're imposing taxes at the back door. We are seeing things that we are not very comfortable with. I don't think it's something that should continue. Yes, the president and his party promised the people of this country, in fact, they signed a social contract with us that when they are elected, when they are, God permits and they get elected, they are going to reduce corporate income taxes from the 25% to 20%. Okay? What are we seeing? They've turned around to impose the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy for 2 more years. What this simple means is that they have imposed additional 5% tax on businesses. 5% taxes on businesses. Today, if he comes here and say that taxes are coming down, I don't think taxes are coming down. They are rather increasing taxes. In fact, the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy should have been ended by now. That was the expectation. The Special Import Levy should have ended. They've extended it for 2 more years. Not only 1 year, but 2 years.
So an extension of some of your policies?
Those taxes were supposed to expire. They had sunset clauses in itself. So it shouldn't have been extended in any way. So extending that tax means you are imposing additional taxes, contrary to your campaign promise. In fact, they said that they will abolish it when they are to assume office. You've assumed office how many years now? You didn't abolish it. You've extended it for 2 more years. Do you think it's fair? It's not fair. It's a complete breach of the social contract you signed with the people of this country. The hardship situation is serious, and we have to address it. It's not good enough.
Let me put to you an explanation that I have heard from government before. They suggest that the reason why prices are going up in the market, first of all, because we import so much.
Yes.
And because they have come and corrected the corruption that used to happen at the ports.
Yes.
People are now paying closer to true value for imports.
Yes.
Naturally, that means that the prices have to go up. What do you say to that?
It cannot be correct. In fact, the prices of goods and services are going up, particularly on things that we import because of the instability of the city. Okay? Because remember, you are using your currency, Ghana cedi. You are converting it into pound sterling or dollar or euro to go and buy the goods into the country. If today you used to buy something that is equivalent of 4 Ghana cedis, which is $1, in the past 4 Ghana cedis, and all of a sudden, that 4 Ghana cedis has jumped to 4.5 Ghana cedis. Don't you think that is going to affect the prices of goods and services? That is going to affect the prices of goods and services. They should first of all fix the city, the instability of the city. They claim they are stabilizing the city, but that is not the case.
But that's
the
interesting,
city, no,
though.
let me tell you something. The city we are talking about, before they took office at the Bank of Ghana, the rate was 3.8. What is the rate at Bank of Ghana? 3.3, 3.4. That is what it is. And it's projected to go down even further. And the reason is simple. One, you know what is happening to cocoa. Okay, the prices of cocoa is coming down. And for that matter, they've lost forex about 1.8 billion Ghana cedis.
Is that the fault of government?
The government was supposed to put up measures in such a way, it has to put measures in place in such a way that it can absorb those shocks. Have they done that? No. Last year, when the city was actually wobbling, they resorted to a very short-term measure that has resulted in a scandal, borrowing 2.25 billion Ghana cedis just to shore the reserves. And you claim the reserves are going up on the back of borrowing. It's not good enough. It's short-term.
So you disagree with international reports that the city's most stable year in the past 5 was 2017?
Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? The evidence doesn't support that. In fact, in the past 5 years, it's 2016 rather. Certainly not 2017. It's rather 2016. It's rather 2016. Go back and check the statistics and indexes. And then you prove me right that 2016 we managed to stabilize the city on account of measure policies that we put in place. Certainly not 2017. 2017, you saw the city going back and forth. And at the end of the year, we've seen what is happening. The total depreciation as compared to 2016 is far better than 2017. And remember, 2016 was also an election year.
We look forward to your press conference next week.
Then let me also tell you something. Something I find it very interesting. The president talked about the fact that debt to GDP, has gotten to 73.1%. I thought they said they are going to bring the debt to GDP down. They inherited a debt to GDP at 72%. The claim is too high. I heard the vice president when he said that he's going to bring the debt down by 71%. Today, I feel vindicated that it can be done. It's now 73.1%. Even that is on account of what happened to oil. It's on account of what happened to oil in the sense that the oil output increased to the level that actually shot up the GDP. So they've even been saved by the GDP on the back of oil. If not, would have hit 78%. Not only that, I thought the president would have given us the nominal debt numbers. Why is he running away from the nominal debt numbers so that we can be able to compare it? And also, let me correct some factual inaccuracy in the statement that was made by His Excellency the President. He said that the debt accumulation for 2016 was 13.5%. Please, Mr. President, that 13.5% is as at September 2017 and not December 2017. It cannot be the case. In fact, if you are to put together the debt accumulation, actually outstrip that of 2016 and cannot be accurate.
Important facts to be checked. So we'll do exactly that. Kazalto Forson, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Evans?
It has been. And guess what? We also caught up with former President John Agyekum Kufuor, and this is what he told us.
Viewers say, how did it go for you?
How did it go for you too? I want to know. It was good. Very good. Very comprehensive. How are you?
How did it go?
How are you? Good. No, it's for Parliament to decide, to debate it, yeah?
But you listen. How did it go for you?
Well, I have no comment yet.
Excellency, you can be rest assured. Now, more than half of the statement actually captured what you had started and what they intend to do, except that he failed to refuse or neglected to give you credit for starting those projects. But we still believe that history will bear you out. And so, once again, on behalf of the minority in Parliament, let me extend our gratitude, sincere gratitude and appreciation for you joining us this afternoon and sharing the lunch with us. Thank you so very much.
Nation's Address 2018. But we have one more guest, don't we, Evans?
Yes, that's the local government minister, and of course has a lot on their plate. Next year, the president has told us a referendum is going to happen. Tell us more about the preparation towards it.
Yes, we've had a discussion with the EC. You know, when it comes to those elections matter, EC is involved, and they've given us a time schedule. And 6 months, you have to deposit it in Parliament for 6 months and then take it out to the President and other commissions and all that. So we are in the process. Okay. We're in the process of working on it. And we are also engaging the community quickly so that they understand that, yes, we are talking about the election of MMDCs. We've had our decentralization.
What sort of feedback are you getting from those consultations?
It's positive. Yeah, it's positive. People want MMDCs to be elected. It's positive. Some people say, yeah, we should elect them. Some people feel, oh, should it be partisan? Majority of people feel it should be partisan. Other people feel, oh, maybe it should not be partisan. But at the end of the day, the vote will tell us.
Imagine the stress you're under, because since 1992, we haven't had any referendum. This will be probably the first time we're doing it, and it's under your watch. You must be one of the most. I don't envy you at all.
Well, yes, actually, there's going to be a referendum, hopefully on the regions this year.
Okay.
And then the referendum we're going to have will be a bit easier because we want to attach it to the election of assembly members. 2019 will be the election of assembly members. So there will be an additional ballot for them to vote on whether MMDC should be elected on partisan or non-partisan basis. So we'll just ride on the election of assembly members and then do that. So on the campaign will be 2, elect your assembly members, and the third one will be whether elections of assembly elections, local government elections should be partisan. And once we get the yes, then it means that moving forward, our MMDCs will be elected by universal adult suffrage.
I can't let you go without asking you. We just had a confirmation from the Monitoring and Evaluation Minister that there's some assessments going to start. Is it for Monday, correct? From Monday of yourself and other ministers sitting with the president talking about what you've done, what you haven't done, and possibly that might influence a reshuffle. I'm sure you've gotten your letter inviting you to appear before the president.
I'm yet to get the letter, but you know the Minister of Monitoring and Evaluation assesses all of us on continuous basis. He has a framework for assessing us. So when there's going to be the assessment, he should know. So I think he has the authority to talk about it.
Yeah, but you're not afraid of anything. You're ready to prove that you've done a lot.
I think I'm doing my work right.
Thank you very much, Ajalima Maham. I'm grateful that you joined us. Kojo, we have to wrap up now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, thank you so much for joining us here on the Joy News channel. We've also been live on Joy 99.7 FM from the House of Parliament, where the President today delivered the State of the Nation address for 2018. How much of that are you feeling in your life? In the coming days, we'll be bringing you all the analysis and all the assessment of what the President has shared today, right here on your Joy News channel.